Hindia. Today we have with us a beautiful and amazing guest, and I can say that because I'm her husband. She's my wife. and so her name is Yatiksha Rao. Before I actually ask her to expand on her background, just to give you a brief introduction, Yatiksha is actually one of the co-founders of Sowtastic. And so what we're hoping to achieve with our podcast today is we want to share with you some of the dumb mistakes that we made, some of the wins that we've been blessed with, and some of the struggles that we overcame. And when we were talking about this podcast, honestly, the one thing that we talked about is how do we make sure we're coming across in a way that can add value, right? So Yatiksha, do you want to add a little bit on that?
Yeah, after 21 years together, I think a talk on money and marriage sounded good, right? Yeah, before we get started, we'd like to mention that we're speaking from our personal experience and we just want to share our ups and downs, and hopefully none of it comes across preachy or pompous in any manner. In fact, we pray that it is a value addition to those who are listening. And my humble request is that you treat it with a supermarket approach, things that make sense and fit with your family. Use it, and if it doesn't, no big deal.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So before we get into anything, why don't we start off about just going through a brief introduction of you and I.
Okay, cool. So I'm Yatiksha Rao. I'm a military brat. My dad served in the Indian Air Force, and we moved every 2 years of my life. So I can confidently say that making friends has never been a problem, but keeping them is a skill I've had to learn, okay? Another fun fact about me is that due to our traveling lifestyle, I did high school in 3 years, and each year was in a different country. 1 year in India, the other in UK, and then the third in the United States. I was probably the only senior driving on the other side of the road and learning how to drive a vehicle in the US. If you meet me, don't ask me geography or history questions. Since every country was vastly different in that subject, it's all a jumble up there, okay? I met my best friend at a local community college back in 2000, from playing pool at the cafeteria to reading comic books together in the library, date night, remember? Yes. To, passing notes in class. And I remember playing Quake.
Yes.
In the middle of class, right? Playing Quake together. And now it's been 21 years, and it is fun when you marry your best friend and soulmate. So
good stuff.
It's been a blast. We now have a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son that truly have taught us so many things, and they've been such blessings in our lives. And in terms of my professional career, I got my degree in graphic design and visual communications. After college, I was able to work in the professional environment. And in my early 20s, I launched my first company. It grew to a point where I was able to clear all my school loans. And at one point, I replaced my full-time job salary. I ran the company for multiple years and then co-launched the financial literacy company, with an amazing friend of mine. We would get together and discuss ways to teach kids growth mindset and finance topics, things like giving or investing or spending habits. And we were intentional about it and thought, I know there are parents out there just like us wanting to do the same. And lo and behold, we launched Sowtastic. And thank you so much, Roshan, for volunteering to do these podcasts with amazing people. I have so many tricks and tools under my belt because of all the value addition from people that I've met because of these podcasts. So thank you.
You're welcome. So just to give you my background, I come from humble beginnings, came to US in the early 90s when I was 12 years old. And so I'm first generation in US, child of first generation Asian Indian parents. My father had a cushy job in management in India, and my mother had chosen to be a stay-at-home mother raising us 3 kids. And so we applied to come to US. We moved instantly from India to here. And by professional background, I've worked in the IT industry, have had run IT startups, and have worked through IT consulting companies, a lot of Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. So why don't we do this? Can you help me understand, Yatiksha, some of the financial literacy lessons that life taught you as you were growing up?
Sure, absolutely. I'm of the belief that life is a series of decisions and events that shape who you are. And as an immigrant, especially one living in the Air Force camp, We had a lavish lifestyle. Food was ever ready at the mess hall, lots of people to tend to every need. In fact, I remember one time, not once, but multiple, they would stop the movie in the middle of the movie to come and ask us if you'd like something to eat. A driver was accessible to take you anywhere, even if you wanted to go take a dip at the pool. Gosh, I remember getting out of the pool, playing Street Fighter and the gaming console, and without any money, and then getting a snack and saying, add it to my dad's tab. La-dee-da. I'm listening to my talk here, and I know I probably took it all for granted. And then my parents decided to start in a whole new country, not once, but twice. Mind you, 3 years of high school, all in different countries. Talk about culture shock. That definitely did a doozy on my self-image. And you know this because you've known me since the age of 19. I went from an outgoing personality to completely shrinking into my shell, all while handling the pressures of maintaining a high GPA and being part of the honor society, maintaining dean's list status. You know, with all of that, I had to pay international fees due to my visa status. So guess what? I used to work 2 jobs my entire school career, along with managing 18 to 21 credit hour semesters. In fact, I remember mom and dad at 14, when we had just moved to the UK, they encouraged me to work my first job. So I've held my first job at the age of 14.
Nice. And
delivering newspapers in the wet weather. But just so I could pay my cell phone minutes, okay? I felt my parents subconsciously ingrained the lessons of budgeting and differentiating between needs and wants from then on. While I had the seeds of these finance basics, I feel they were fleeting. And I wish, looking back, what I know now, if I'd known back then, I would have minimized all the dumb mistakes. You know, they say money talks, and I felt in our household it said bye-bye. We just had to learn how to give every dollar a name, because if I didn't, it left, okay? Because if you don't tell your money where to go, it leaves, okay?
Well, so something interesting that you mentioned. So you learn to live below your means, right? Growing up, you talked about learning some of the needs versus wants. It sounds like there was some basic budgeting that you had, and you learned to actually have a job early on and balance school, right? That's awesome. Okay. So, you know, at least in my case, I talked about my father having a cushy job in India. Well, guess what? When we moved here, what happened was the struggle started, right? He struggled to transition into a white collar job. And he started working in a factory along with my mother, who had never worked in India. Well, lo and behold, here, she actually had to start a job, right? Both my parents worked tremendously to support us kids. And the 5 of us actually lived in an apartment from the age of 12, 13, when I was 12, 13, till when I started college. After that, I moved into my very first townhome with my parents. One of the things that I realized through living this is watching my parents work hard, but you couldn't help compare to peers, to friends that maybe had a slightly bigger home, a slightly better car, right? Maybe they went on one too many more vacations than we did. And so something that I started seeing was there was a gap in what I knew versus what I saw others may have known. You know, at 16, I was busy playing computer games. I was teaching myself how to program through like websites and databases and things like that. My dad said, yeah, enough of that. Go get a job. Because I was coming to my parents to go to movies. You know, hey, Dad, can you give me $5, $10 to go to movies? I was coming to my parents to go to a restaurant with my friends, right? So my parents said, go get a part-time job and support yourself, right? So I remember working at Office Max and a now defunct retail store called CompUSA. The crazy thing about that was not only did they pay me hourly, but they also paid me commission. And that just blew my mind, because I was like, whoa, here was a chance for me to control my own finances, if you will, right? The more I worked, the more I could earn. But over and above that, if I did really well in my retail sales job, I could make much more extra than that, right? So picture this. I'm 17 years old, right? I have complete ignorance about finance management, right? So no finance literacy, no mentor that I could turn to and ask questions. And I had some decent money coming in. And since I live with my folks, I wasn't paying rent. I was just paying basic expenses for myself. So I had this money piling up and I started to make some really dumb decisions. Right around the time that I met Yatiksha, I remember taking what was in my savings account at that time, working through my jobs. It was like a $12,000 or something, and I wanted a car. So instead of getting an affordable, a reasonable car, I decided to buy a
Mitsubishi
Eclipse, $12,000 cash paid car. Cash because I had the cash lying around. I'm like, why would I apply for credit and things like that, right? Which would be okay if I had more cash in the bank, which I didn't, right? Now, fast forward a few months, I crashed that car. Not because I used to race with it, right? And
you were supposed to meet me for a movie.
I was, I was, and right, and so I crashed that car, not racing it, but on my way to a race. And so I remember selling that car for about $2,500 because it was so junked up. So here I went from $12,000 down to $2,500 in a matter of a few months. And because of that ignorance, I didn't dwell much on it. I said, whatever, I can make more. And so while I did make dumb decisions, I do think some of my ignorance helped me get through it quicker. So over and above that, besides working and going to school and dating Yatiksha, I also started up an IT company because as I was learning websites, I think that I had gotten far ahead in the IT game to work on applications through companies. And
thanks for hiring me.
Yeah, and you were one of the graphics designers, right? And so me and a few friends said, hey, let's work with companies. Let's get paid professionally, right? Let's get paid like a business. Hustling there, having a job, hustling there, school, hustling there. It was very chaotic hustle, if you will, right? No concept of balancing bank accounts or budgeting or saving for future. It was just make money enough so I could plan for the next weekend or the next big party or an outing with my friends. Over and above that, because of racing, I added a whole lot of tickets that while the racing may have been fun, paying tickets was not. Right then is when I met Yatiksha, and I was going through some of the tremendous peaks, but also some of the most dangerous valleys.
Do you remember that time when it was our some year anniversary and we both had just like $5 to our name and we decided, let's go to a dollar store. You go one direction, I go one direction. Let's pick up 5 things for each other. And that was our anniversary gift to each other, remember?
Yeah.
These are the downs.
Yeah. Had I known what I know now back then, I would have made much smart decisions.
We were just so naive, and honestly, I didn't even know how a credit card worked. And in college, they gave me the application. I filled it out. And I didn't know I was supposed to pay the card back. For a while, because I was using my credit card so crazily, I had the cash envelope system because we heard that in a Dave Ramsey talk somewhere. And that's how I learned how to change my expenses to a definite fixed amount as opposed to them being variables. In fact, there's an interesting fact. I learned this early on that casinos did an entire study on this. The reason why they give chips instead of using cash at the slot machines and the tables, it's because actual emotional pain is registered when you spend cash as opposed to spending chips. So what they want you to do is get the chips once and you register that pain once, and
nice.
That's why the chips are there. So interestingly, that was my relationship with my credit card. I spent without any pain registration until the statement showed up. Okay. And while dating, I remember we got access to a financial coach who got us started on the path to learn and grow in that area. And since then, we have actively sought people who are in life financially, spiritually, relationship-wise, family life to guide us. And yes, from our opinion, we feel not one person had it all. And so we seeked multiple peoples for different areas of our life.
Yeah, actually, so it's funny that you mentioned college. I know you had college loans early on, right? In my case, my father told me, hey, you can do anything you want to. You can go to any college you want to, as long as you're paying for it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm starting at a community college, right? Because that's all I could afford. I was able to pay off my own tuition. And before Yatiksha and I transferred to a University of Illinois, Chicago, I was able to pay off substantial amount of my college tuition. Yatiksha talked about having financial mentors and coaches. I knew I had access to a financial coach. I just didn't take advantage to it until we got serious about life when we got married. So, Yatiksha, can you help me understand? Prior to getting married, I lived with my parents. Yatiksha lived with her parents. And so when we got married was the very first time we said, let's move into an apartment together. Right? So help me understand some of your thought process at that time.
Choosing to be married, it took me 8 years to say yes. I had commitment problems, not him. Okay. And in terms of finances, we chose to combine our accounts, right? Something we chose to do. Not everybody prefers it, but that's something we chose to do. That was interesting. Roshan, remember that first time we went grocery shopping?
Yeah. That was an interesting conversation.
So we went grocery shopping together and I picked up a loaf of bread. I'm a military brat. I love my toast and egg. I picked up a loaf of bread and I remember you saying, honey, babe, do we need that? And I was so angry. I was like, my dad has never asked me that question. How dare you? I mean, we had such a big fight on that.
I think that's probably our very first loud argument as a married couple.
As a married couple, yes, because we argued.
Dating, yes.
And we've come a long way from that conversation, right? We argued a lot, but understand my entity at that point was me, myself, and me being my parents' daughter. And him being Roshan and his parents' son. For us to come together, become one, and think one direction, that took time. I feel gods from up there see people and say, let's put this person and this person together and watch the show. Well, it definitely was a show in our case.
Right.
And we're both strong type A personalities. So, it's a show. All right. What were some of the arguments, Roshan?
I'd say a lot of arguments were around lack of proper finances. Like we'd question each other on some of the personal things we'd buy, like clothes or shoes. For me, electronic toys were a big problem. Anytime I'd buy a new toy, Yatiksha rightfully felt like, hey, you're questioning me on bread, but now you're buying like a new laptop when you just got one a couple of months ago.
Petty arguments, right? I mean, needs and wants, right? That's what it boils down to. I mean, a whole lot of communication around needs and wants. And if your significant other gets a ticket every month.
Wait, now I should mention.
Then that's dipping into the want bucket for you, buddy.
I should mention at this time I wasn't racing, but I still had a lead foot, so I would.
Yes, he taught me how to weave through traffic.
I speed my way everywhere.
So yeah, I mean, in the beginning, we got a ticket, and okay, well, it's a need. That's fine. But then somebody had to take responsibility for the amount of tickets you were getting, right? Yeah. So let's talk love languages, okay? I come from a family of gift givers. My dad has legit given laptops and TVs away to people who've just come to our house and said, I like that. Yeah. No questions asked.
They take it.
Yeah. And his family was not gift giving or receiving family. They focused more on time spending with each other. At this point in my life, words of affirmations are my love languages. And for Roshan, it's acts of service. But back then, hey, I love getting a gift here and there or giving. So here's the problem. This was Yatiksha and this was Roshan. I mean, we had to kind of work on coming together somehow.
One of the things that I also want to mention is when we got married and we moved into our very first apartment, we got such a push from our friends, our parents, our family to buy a new home. You're looked at like you're crazy if you don't buy a home. And my parents even offered to put money towards my down payment of my very first home. And they said, hey, don't get into an apartment, move into a home. Luckily, I started taking my financial coach at the time seriously. And I asked him, hey, would this be something that you would do? Would you accept money from your parents? My coach said, don't do that. You have never paid big bills. You've never paid rent. You've never paid any house mortgages or any repair costs.
And we were trying to figure each other out.
Exactly, right? And so spend first couple of years renting an apartment so you don't have the headaches of a home. And that's okay. the amount of money that you're going to pay in rent, don't think of it like money that you're losing out on. It's money that you're investing into your relationship.
And kudos to you for not taking your parents' money, because I know you lost your dad, and to have that extra money sitting there for your mom, I'm proud of you.
No, and it's funny how temptations try to come and get you. Moving into an apartment was one of the best decisions that we made.
I think even focusing on a 5-year plan to pay off our home that we were living in and our current house too, as opposed to like a 15 to 30-year plan. Keeping up with the Joneses is real. And I'm the impulsive spender in the family. I was happy that Roshan and I had clear-cut goals in front of us, and any deviations was no longer an emotion-based decision, but a logic-based decision.
Yeah,
right?
and I should mention, right when we got married was when we got serious about goal setting.
Yeah, so every year around December, we go to a buffet.
Why a buffet? Because forget the quality of food, quantity of food matters a whole lot for me. So if you want my undivided attention, ask me to a buffet.
The reason why we did buffet was because when we discussed goals at home, we were just getting into too many loud fights. So we decided, let's do it outside, where we'll be at least cordial enough towards each other.
Yeah, and
now we're better.
Yeah, and some of you guys who tried setting goals with your spouse may realize that it can be quite a surprising experience finding out that you guys may not be on the same page.
And we would set goals in the fun, faith, fitness, finance, family, and all those 5S category. We just focused on more logic-based decisions, which were in line with our goal, as opposed to emotion-based decisions. And, you know, Roshan and I even started focusing on creating multiple sources of income, from active income sources, passive income sources with different businesses, rental properties, to portfolio incomes, you know, businesses I launched focused on zero-based budgets. So
I'd say the focus was definitely still hustle. It was, let's hustle what we can.
Despite our focus on all of these things, you know, at the end of the day, our sources needed to lead to a balance of time. I think for both Roshan and I, our priority has always been more time and not money, because sure, we hustled in our 20s, but after marriage, and especially after kids, time is like a non-negotiable.
Right.
We have both given up professions where it took away time from each other, because time is always more important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so that brings us to our time with kids, right? So now doing financial management with 2 little ones, right? For me, it was a flip of a switch.
Yes, he started driving at 25 miles an hour, starting when I got pregnant with the cruise control on. Just saying.
There's a tip there for some of you guys that have the same problem I do. Cruise control at 25 miles an hour is a blast. So it's a good way to ensure not to get a ticket, right? So after we had kids, help me understand how your mindset was.
You know, I'll mention 2 areas that the kids have made me more disciplined towards. Number 1, the vertical alignment in terms of priorities. Like I mentioned before, time is most important to us. I can't explain the joy I get just holding and napping with my kids in the afternoon. We're so intentional about time with each other. I love going on a bike ride with you. I mean, I love exercising with you. I love Uno championships as a family. It keeps things in perspective for us.
Yeah, and it's definitely quality of time.
And the second thing is modeling for our kids. You know, kids teach us so much. Right. And they observe everything we do, correct?
Yeah.
Teaching kids how to, you know, break up their Diwali money from Nana Nani.
Their birthday money.
Yeah, and teaching them to spend, save, give, and invest, especially that giving aspect. You know, it's so important in the finance topic. Teaching the kids that the world of the generous gets larger in so many ways. So frankly, even with launching Sowtastic, at the end of all of it, if I can teach my kids everything I've learned by meeting all the people I've met and all the curriculum we've prepared, at the end of it, if I can just impart that knowledge onto my kids, it's all worth it.
I want to tell you, I give you a lot of credit for teaching our kids through grace, right? Because with our 7-year-old, as we're teaching finances, as we go through question and answers, also trying to teach them through examples that they can relate to. I credit you for having such patience.
I really thought I was the militant parent, but thank you.
Yeah, no, and the modeling for kids became very real because we saw our kids paying attention to the littlest of things. If we were going to make bad decisions, that might get duplicated down the line. It was a good way for us to focus on not just what we were doing, but why we were doing things and how we were doing things. And I think that also helped us get into the continuous learning mode more seriously than we've ever been before. So help me understand your perspective there, Yatiksha.
So we choose to focus on growth. Something I've read and it's ingrained in my mind is the definition of hell is the person I am someday meeting the person I could have been. And only way we knew how to grow was by seeking these three things. One, find somebody who we felt were in life where we wanted to be and follow their advice. Number two was seek knowledge from books and other external sources. What we don't know, right? A recently read book on the psychology of money was excellent. And the third thing, which is probably the most important, is being cognizant of our sphere of influence.
Right.
We tell our kids to stay away from bad influences, and yet as adults, sometimes we forget to do that. We are just intentional about our association. They say you are the sum total of the 5 people who surround you. And frankly, I'd rather be the dumbest of the 5 so I can learn and grow as opposed to being the wisest of the 5.
Nice. So now let me ask you a question that I love asking all of our guests. If you had to turn back time and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give her to put her ahead in life sooner?
Since this is a money and marriage talk, okay, if I could do something different, it would be to realize that you're not telepathic. I mean, learning to communicate efficiently and faster. I think the arguments would have reduced and been solved faster. And please don't get the idea that we don't have fights anymore. We just talk about them faster and,
Try to resolve them quicker.
Yeah, well, especially if the kids saw you argue. I mean, we quickly get to a sorry right in front of them and faster and done. Especially when it comes to tying marriage and money. I think just being a better communicator with just you and I.
Nice. When I think of my younger self, I think randomness and chaos, whether it was good or bad.
Until I came in your life.
Until you came into that. And then it was more organized chaos.
Right.
But I would say the one word that I would impart on my younger self is intentionality. I learned that anytime I do something with intention, I tend to achieve results quicker. Whether it's health goals or finances or spiritual goals or family goals, whatever the case may be, if I put thought and sincere effort intentionally, I get to those goals a lot quicker. And if my younger self had known that, it would have helped me tremendously.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure going down memory lane for the last 21 years together. Absolutely. And I hope it added value with some of our shortcomings that we've overcome, and we're definitely still learning. Thank you so much, Roshan, for taking your time to always do these podcasts and volunteering that time so I can run my passion project.
Thank you, guys.